Hi, everyone. I'm Joy, founder of Positive Discipline UK and co-founder of iGrow Co. And I'm so excited to be joined this evening by Angela Hanscom, who is, and I'm going to read this because I'll mess it up. She is a pediatric occupational therapist, and she's founder of Nook, which I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about. But it's an award-winning developmental nature-based program that's really gained international popularity. It happens all over the world. I'll let you tell us a little bit more about that. And actually, she also has a fantastic TED Talk that I will share the link to. That's kind of how I found Angela. So welcome, Angela. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I forgot to mention, really, I think the most important thing is that you are also a mother of three. So you have a 15-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old son. So she is in the midst of everything that we've been talking about, trying to distance learning and all of that. But as you can see, she's very lucky that she kind of lives in nature. So I'm sitting here in my tiny little cubicle room, and she's got this beautiful, scenery. It's not a virtual background. Yes. So if you are watching us live, just say hello and let us know where you're calling in from. So we'd always like to know how far and wide we're reaching. But Angela, I would love it if you can just actually explain a little bit about Nook, and then we'll talk about some of the really cool stuff that you spoke about in your TED Talk, and also really how can we as parents, make sure we can get our children out in nature, even during quarantine, even during this pandemic. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So Timbernook is a program that started in my backyard. So that way over there. But we live on about 12 acres of woodland in New Hampshire, and we have about 50 acres of conservation surrounding it. So we really do live in the boonies. But having my first child actually is what inspired me to start Timbernook, and um, I signed her up for everything, just like, what kind of is what expected of us sometimes as we get excited about the different options. I had her in music class, I had her in preschool, I had her all kinds of things, and she started having more tantrums and having trouble with all the transitions. And it's funny because we live on this property, but I used to have nightmares of the woods, and I was afraid of ticks, which is a problem over here because they can give Lyme. And so I had a series of events that happened in my life that got me down this path of bringing programming outdoors, but it was really inspired by having my own kids and realizing I had to slow down a little bit and overcome my own fears in order to allow my child to really thrive. And I also noticed there was less children playing outdoors, so I took a shortcut through the neighborhood nearby, often to get to our property. And one day it just dawned on me. I thought, where are all the kids? Like I grew up in rural Vermont where we biked to other children's homes, knocked on the doors, and played outside till the lights went off. So, really just like noticing there was less kids outside was the other thing. And then finally, as a pediatric occupational therapist, we often treat children with sensory issues. And I remember seeing a rise in interesting sensory issues. For instance, we had this little boy that came in to the clinic setting because often we're indoors actually too. Therapists are actually even we're in schools or we're in hospitals
Yeah.
or in we call it sensory clinics, and we bring nature indoors or we'll bring our swings indoors, but we're not often found outdoors. So this was very new for my profession. And I remember having a little boy come in, and he didn't like wind in his face. And I remember the mom telling me that and thinking, how am I going to treat that in a clinic setting? Do I get a fan and blow the fan on him? And a lot of kids liking getting dirty. But the number one issue, and I know we're going to talk about this, is that kids were actually starting to fall out of their chairs and onto the ground more, becoming more and more clumsy. And it's the number one issue we actually have to treat in a clinic setting is their balance. And so I just, started paying attention to that. And that's really, that was my interest of getting kids outside started because of those different factors.
Wow. Yeah. And I didn't realize it started in your backyard, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And, I was really attracted by the title of your TED Talk, which is the real, I don't know the exact, it's the real reason children fidget, right?
Yes.
And, I was explaining to that, I'm ADHD. And when I was a kid, I was labeled hyperactive and fidgety and she can't sit still. And gosh, I only wish that I had someone like you in my life that really helped me understand that. And I know how important it has been for me to be outside in nature, especially during this time. But always, I can't be confined in a sense. It really it stresses me out to do that. And so I would love to talk a little bit. One of my favorite parts about your TEDx is when you talk about, first of all, let me backtrack. When you talk about what changes you have seen in the development of children in the last 30 years. And I agree with you. It has a lot to do with what you were already talking about, less children outside. I grew up just like you. In the summer, we were kicked out of the house in the morning. You came home for lunch and you didn't come back till dinner, or else you were stuck home doing chores. So like you were out riding your bike and running and playing tag all day long.
Right.
And kids just don't do that anymore. So first, can you tell us a little bit about what those changes that they've noticed in the past 30 years? And then talk about the brain and the vestibular system, which I think is just amazing. I love brain science.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the number one issues is that children are actually restricted a lot. So they're in an upright position and they're in a seat a lot. And actually, we're probably seeing a rise in this right now because now we're on screens a lot. So what really needs to happen is children need to be moving in all different directions. So rolling down the hill, for instance,
Yeah.
or climbing a tree where they're looking up and down. And the reason why is because in your inner ear are little hair cells, and we need to move in rapid ways. So, like spinning in circles, kind of thing. So the fluid can move back and forth and stimulate those hair cells. And that develops what we call your vestibular sense. And that sense is key to all the other senses. So if we are not moving enough, that fluid can actually thicken in the inner ear, and we can get more ear infections. Babies from an earlier age can have problems with that because we're keeping them often upright in containers, right? So we place them in one container and then another. But babies are actually born with a fully functioning vestibular sense. It's not like vision where they see black and white and it takes time to develop your vision. The vestibular sense, if they're full term, they should be, because you're moving when you're pregnant and the babies. So that sense is, when they research it, is fully functioning. However, if you keep them upright constantly, the fluid in the inner ear can thicken. And you can start to have problems knowing where your body is in space. And that sense helps with what we call sensory integration and organization of the brain. And that actually lays a foundation for learning. If you have trouble with knowing where your body is in space, that can pose a problem. The other thing it does, it helps with attention. So that's why kids fidget, is that fidgeting and moving your vestibular sense actually activates, we call it the reticular activating system in the brain to tune in. And so sometimes when kids are fidgeting, it's because they're trying to pay attention.
Yes.
Yeah. Another issue is that it actually supports all six eye muscles for reading and writing, getting plenty of movement, and it helps with activity regulation. So if you're seeing kids be hyper or their activity arousal levels going up, that often means they need more movement opportunities. And so children with ADHD need even more in order to pay attention.
But we regulate children without it. Like, and
Yeah.
not just children, adults need it too, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so would you say, would you encourage, I did this with my daughter, not knowing any of this. She was an infant. I used to like flip her around. I remember holding her upside down and I would just flip her and dance with her a lot. So that was a good thing then. They used to talk, shake their head too much that you might, but there's a balance, right?
Oh yeah, you don't want to like do that. You do want to move them around, and you want to allow them to have ample opportunity to move on the ground as well. And bringing it outdoors is even better because if you think about the ground indoors, it's always flat. And so
Yeah,
you're not constantly adjusting your balance and your muscles. But when you step outdoors, the ground is uneven. So you're constantly adjusting. So crawling outdoors is even better because the child is constantly
wobbly.
making adaptations in the brain.
You know,
Yeah.
you say in your TED talk, and I love this. You say, "Let your children do movements that make you gasp." Right? Is that
Yeah.
how you say it? Like, oh,
Yeah.
and I
Absolutely.
have to say, I think when I watched it, it was just about a month ago or two when I watched your talk, and it was so validating because during this time I've been with my daughter all day. I became a stay-at-home mom like overnight, and I can't sit in the house all day. I will go out of my mind. And every morning we're out by 9. We come home at 12 for lunch. So we're out for like 3 hours. And we basically go to parks. It's the only place we can go. And I'm very lucky where I live that we have Hampstead Heath. We have woodsy kind of parks where they're not little playgrounds. They're big parks that you feel like you're outside of London. And she's gotten into climbing trees. And she's balancing. I'm letting her hang from them. And, I started letting her hang upside down. I'm holding her legs, of course. But
Hmm.
now I'm letting her climb by herself. And there are moments of like, oh, I'm just thinking, oh gosh, broken arm. I don't want to take her to the hospital right now. Like it's the last place she wants to go right now is to the emergency room. But, I just see how much she's grown,
Yeah.
her, and I have no
How
doubt
capable she is, right?
yeah. So I want to thank you for validating that and inspiring me to do it more because after I heard your talk, I was like, yes, keep doing this.
Yes.
It was really
Ab-
validating. So,
Yeah.
so I want to ask you now in your TED talk, this was like a wow. Okay. You say that children should be outside. Okay. People watching, are you ready? Actually, before I say how much time do you think that Angela recommends children should be outside every single day? If you're watching, put your guess into the comments because I want to see what you guys think because this kind of blew me away. And I know people's reactions, they're going to go, there's no way, it's impossible, we're too busy. There's, because like you mentioned, you had your daughter music and you're putting her in all of these classes. And so many of us are falling into that trap of like over scheduling our kids. I actually was thinking about my childhood, and I think I was outside almost as much as you recommended, but certainly kids are not now. So I know we have people on from the UAE, from the UK, from the United States. So if anyone's on, just how much time, but we won't spend time waiting for everyone's answers. So how much time, Angela, should children spend outside every day? It may
So really at least 3 hours of outdoor
Okay,
play.
so Paige was close. She said two
Yeah.
hours, and Valerie said 4. So you guys were
Yeah.
right. We're right in the middle. At least 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I know on a normal count, people are going to say it's impossible. But now with the quarantine and all of the limitations, everyone's going to go, it's totally impossible. But I actually think it's more possible now than ever. And I would
Yeah.
love for you to give, the people viewing this some recommendations. Like what would you, how can they get their kids out? Some ideas you would have?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the opportunities from this quarantine is it's allowed us more time with our families, and all those activities that we had our kids signed up for are all canceled. So now is a perfect time to go out there with your children and allow them to have that time and space. And it's really important that they have ample time. And then going forward, I think prioritizing and just remembering how important that gift of time was and not being quick to sign up for everything again. And I think that we're going to be kind of forced to do that anyway because it seems that outdoor programming is probably a safer option anyway than
Yeah.
setting your children up for indoor type programming options. Um, so that's my biggest recommendation is really just allowing this opportunity to get out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
using it to our advantage. Like on the weekends, we would always take my daughter out, but
Yeah.
during the week, it was like she was in nursery, we're working.
Right.
A nursery would take them out for a half hour. It just didn't happen. And
Right.
thinking, even when she starts again, like, we're going to walk home. Like, why are
Right.
we going to hop on the bus? We're going to walk home from
Yeah.
nursery. If she's tired, I'll push her in the pram, but at least she's outside, you
Yeah.
know, and just, you know, shifting the mindset a little bit, I think is
Yeah.
really important.
And even like the preschools and the schools, like, really advocating for, taking some of their learning outdoors. And it's always been healthier to be outside, and learning outdoors is more engaging and motivating than, going inside a building. So, just starting to rethink everything and just taking our time with that and thinking about how can we get more stuff outside.
Yeah. Do you have, Angela, do you have resources that you share with parents and with schools that people can get access to, like just activities that they can do outdoors? Where can they find that?
Yeah, so I think most of our research and our ideas and stuff come right on Facebook. So unfortunately, not everyone's on Facebook, but that tends to be where we're linking a lot of experiences and research. So Timber Nook on Facebook, I would recommend that, and we're going to be posting something about advocating for schools on there later this week
Oh,
of
great.
how to advocate for outdoor learning. It's just going to be needed more than ever, especially with the need for more play is another thing that um, I guess is really important to think about. So I didn't dive into this at all, but Timbernook, what we do is we do outdoor play experiences, and it's from 18 months all the way through middle school. So we also
Mhm.
certify and work with schools and bring Timbernook into the schools, and we also have providers that run year-round forest programming and camps and stuff. So, looking at in your area, is there Timbernook already? I know that in London, you're gonna have one coming up, and you also have one already in there in Wimbledon Commons region,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and then North London is coming hopefully next year
Yeah,
as
it
well.
got
So
pushed off because of this whole, they're looking at
I know
April
couldn't get
2021.
yeah. So yeah,
And
but because they are talking about the trauma for some of the children of being isolated from other children, but just recognizing how important play is going to play in the role of protecting children from that.
I think, you know, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Mr. Rogers? That
Yes.
okay, Mr. Rogers. You know, there's a quote by him, and it says, um, "Play is the." I'm butchering this right now. Play is the job of a preschooler, of a toddler. Like their job is to play. Some
Yeah.
people think of play as a break, but it's no, it should be their primary thing that they're doing, right? And I think
Yep.
that's important. And outdoor play is even better. I mean, when you think about letting a children play in the sand and the dirt and the mud and jumping in puddles and all of that. I mean, when the joy, you know, of jumping in puddles, and just allowing them to get wet and get muddy. And you know what we did today, and I was really actually quite happy about it. We collected some cool branches, like from branches that had fallen off. We had some windy days last week, and the branches had broken off the trees, and they had really nice leaves. It was almost like a broom in a sense, but we collected them to then do leaf painting and dip the leaves in the paint and really, you know, move it around. And it was, you know, simple things like that can
Yeah.
really connect kids to nature in a different way.
Yeah, maybe I could just give you a couple examples of how, when you step outdoors, how it helps with the senses for children, and give you a couple examples. So, like indoor play versus outdoor. And even think about this for primary schools going forward. Everything has always been done indoors. And so, really just rethinking things a little bit. One really common one is a sensory bin, right? Those are really popular. You see them in actually occupational therapy clinics use them as well, but early childhood settings and even parents, it was a huge rage for a while. So like a little box of sand or a little box of beans, and it's considered a sensory experience. So really, and there's nothing wrong with that, but really just comparing that to stepping outdoors with the giant puddles, right? And you might have more than one child out there. Picture that where children are fully immersed in giant mud puddles and compare that to a sensory bin. And if you start comparing the two and you say, okay, these are both sensory experiences, but which one is going to truly create change within the child? Which one do you think is going to better do that?
I love that. And it's so true. You know what? I mean, to be honest, we've had to be a little creative because at times we couldn't go outside. And I had gotten, I love this stuff. You know that kinesthetic sand,
Oh, kinesthetic sand.
right?
Yeah.
It's like that magnetic. My God, that
Yeah.
whoever invented that is just a genius in my mind. Because it's not healthy in the house, right? And we've had to use that inside. But I have to tell you, when we go outside, and Chloe literally just plops herself down in a parking lot, sits down in the dirt and just plays with rocks, you know? She's so much more engaged than even that kinesthetic sand, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
She'll stay sitting in a parking lot for an hour, picking up rocks,
Absolutely.
playing in the dirt. Meanwhile, she gets bored after 10, 15 minutes of the kinesthetic sand, right? So
Yes.
you have to observe. Thank you for sharing that, because if we just, that would be my advice. Observe your children in the home environment using these things, and then observe them out in nature doing these things, and know
Yeah.
what the difference is.
Yep. So, and if you think about it, like that total body engagement, right, in the puddle versus sometimes you have a little thing of kinesthetic sand and you might get your hands in there, but that total body sensory engagement and you said the meaningfulness of that, right? It's true occupation, and that's going, so occupation for a child is play, and you know the engagement of that is big. The other thing to think about is that's a tactile, sometimes that tactile sense can feel aversive for some children. They don't like getting dirty, and so that kind of experience can feel aversive, and the way to override that is actually through deep pressure. And so when you step outdoors, let's say you're on the beach, right, and a child's digging in the sand, what they're doing is they're actually getting that deep pressure to override that light touch sense and to integrate it. So when you step outdoors, your chances for sensory integration and organizing those senses are going to be higher than just playing a little bit with and just getting the tactile sense. So again, stepping outdoors, you're getting that deep pressure, that heavy work, as well as that light touch sense.
And you know, that's amazing that you say that. Well, one thing is, we know that the brain retains information, you know, through having meaning. And what I've
Right.
noticed is when we do an activity inside, I'll play with my daughter for a few minutes and then I let her kind of play independently. And
Yeah.
when we're outside together in nature, we're really in it together. And just that alone, it creates an experience. It creates meaning that she will
Yep.
remember. She's not going to
Yep.
remember playing with the sand in the house,
Right.
right? But she will remember climbing the trees and balancing on the logs, because every time we go out, she's ready to go do that again.
Right.
So it's such, you know, these are simple things when we think about it. Angela, I want
Right.
to read a comment, which is really,
Oh, sure.
and this is from someone in Sweden, and it does not surprise me one bit. I'm not even going to try to pronounce. This is Linda from Stockholm, and she said where her daughter attends it's a fresh air preschool. I'm not going to try to say it in Swedish. When in Swedish preschool, kids are outside most of the day. At my daughter's preschool, they are outside almost all day with a daily walk to the forest, whatever the weather, snow, sun, lots of clothes variations. They have a wooden stage outside, which has 3 wooden sides and 1 open, where they take their naps outside. They sleep in sleeping bags in winter. On other days, they nap on the ground in the forest. It's amazing. I mean,
That's awesome.
I look at, you know, Sweden is like one of the countries that did not close their schools at all during this. And they received, some people have given them a lot of flack. But you know what? Of all my workshops that have been canceled, that's the one. I will be in Stockholm. Linda, maybe I'll see you in Stockholm because I'm coming to work with the international school there in Stockholm. And, you know, it's just, there's something to be said for that, the way they live in nature. And
it's total immersion. Yeah.
It's immersion and their health and their immunity. And, you know, it's just incredible.
Yes.
And someone asked, so Paige asks, can you give a sample of more meaningful play? I think I just kind of said that a little bit, Paige, but I'm going to see if Angela has anything else more she wants to add about meaningful play.
So when we mean meaningful, true play versus is really a child directed, and it's a choice. So this is especially important for children with any kind of sensory issue, or any kind or anxiety issue. So when children have any like sort of sensory issue, there's often anxiety tied with that. And so if you don't give a choice, it actually rise anxiety level. And I want to give an example of that. So let's talk about those giant mud puddles again. We had a child come one time to one of our programs that knew we were going down to the mud puddles, and he said, "I'll go to those mud puddles, but I'm not taking my shoes off." And so he had plastic welly boots on, which are interesting anyway. And so I said, "That's fine." So we went down, and what happened it was children were playing in the mud puddles, and a couple of kids had found frogs and were catching frogs,
Oh,
and that was actually meaningful to him. And so he got super excited and he went right in. The mud went in his plastic welly boots, which feels really gross, right? So he
flashy
right
clouds.
away he came back out and he said, "This is disgusting." He said, "Can I take these off?" And I said, "Yes." So then he went right back in barefoot and he was playing with other children. That was meaningful to him. And what happened was we told the mom, and she said, that he had been working for 2 years in a clinic setting on a like these fake sensory environments to try to go barefoot, unsuccessful. But because it was a choice, like and it was a meaningful experience for him, it trumped his fear and his sensory issues, and he went right in. Now if I had said, "I think you should try to take your shoes off," what do you think he would have done?
Yeah. No, he
He
was
would have
interested.
It'd be a control thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they want so making everything a choice. So we never suggest kids go barefoot here. The environment inspires play. So we purposely stage our environment, but the adults actually step back, and the children, it's all child directed.
That's amazing. No, I really think that's just so. I mean, yeah, I could talk all day about this. It's incredible.
I know,
We only have a few minutes on this, so
we only have 3 minutes.
if anyone has any additional questions, please put them in the chat. And in the meantime, I do want to share a couple of things. So when I looked, Angela, for Timber Nook on Facebook, there was like many of them. Like there's one for Timber Nook in this place. So how do we find like your Timber Nook Facebook page? Because I couldn't find it.
Oh, you couldn't find it.
I wasn't sure which one it was.
I'll share you the link, and then
Okay.
you can post
I'll
it.
edit. Great, because that way people can look for more resources. And I do want to share that. So my friend and colleague Jodu, who's probably listening to us, she is the one who is kind of bringing Timber Nook to North London, very close to where I live, which I'm really excited. It'll actually be happening in Hampstead Heath, up by Kenwood House. And I believe she has a Facebook page. I'm not sure if it's Timber Nook London or if that's the Wimbledon one, but I will get those details as well, so that if anyone's interested here, they can look into that. And, Jody shared something with me today, which I loved, because I love nature and I love the outdoors, but at the same token, I'm not like a camping, I was forced to do it as a kid, and I don't like bugs, so I have my own sensory issues about things, as we all do. But, Jody said something that was so really helpful to me. She said, even creating positive language around the outdoors and nature is really important. What are we modeling for kids? So I'm really careful about the bugs and not to say, I hate this or I'm grossed out. I really try to not do that, because I don't want my daughter to be like, ooh, about everything. But one thing, here in London, it rains all the time. And I'm like a sun worshiper. I love the sun. The rain really gets me down in the winter. And so, we would sing, rain, rain, go away, please come back another. And I said, oh gosh, Jody, I've been singing this with her, that when it rains, she says rain, she sings it. And so, but I did combat this a few weeks ago. It rained. We went outside in the rain. We jumped in the puddles, and I knew there was going to kind of be a rainbow, because it was like that weird, like there was clouds and sun coming. He said, let's go outside and dance in the rain and jump in the puddles, and let's look for a rainbow. And I was so glad that I did that. And we had such fun, and we did see a rainbow. And so I just want to remind, we've talked to the viewers a lot about positive discipline, which is the program that I work with. And we talked a lot about the importance of modeling how incredibly important modeling is for your children. And so, you know, being mindful of the things that we say and the things that we do. If we say, "Oh, it's dirty," if we're making a big deal about being our hand, you know, touching dirt. Listen, the dirt soil is probably one of the cleanest things you can have on your hands right now, you know? So play in the dirt and garden and soil and all of that stuff. Like I call that clean dirt, you know, it's clean dirt. So
it helps with it too.
Right? Let them play in that. And I just, so Jody says she's on and she doesn't have a Facebook page yet, but she will. So we'll keep you posted on that. And there's some folks on here from Toulouse in France. And I do want to share with everyone. So I was really inspired, Angela. Again, I've said that numerous times by your talk, that I have decided to create an online course to help parents and help teachers get their kids moving. Because some of us, I have friends in Manhattan, in New York, that were quarantined in elevator, high-rise buildings. They couldn't get out in nature. But still, even if you can't get in nature, the importance of moving. And so even in the course I'm creating, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow for ECIS, and the participants will be getting up and they'll be doing jumping jack turns in each direction. You know, they'll be spinning and moving and turning, because when we are trying to learn online or engage online, we need to get our bodies moving. We need to get that vestibular system going. So I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing. I'm so excited that it's here in London. And I hope that people will reach out and find a timber nook near them. And we do have to end it, but if you can just share one bit about how you're supporting schools, just in like a minute or less, because I think that's super important if anyone's an educator and they're hearing this.
Yeah. So we were already working on this with schools for about 3 years. So it's but we offer ongoing training, support, and we have curriculum. All our play experiences are especially here in America. That's where we're focused right now, in Canada. But it would be great to work in London as well. But our curriculum is all aligned with next generation science standards and Common Core. Mm-hmm. And so the play experience itself is very rich, and then they connect that after into further learning by extension activities. So
amazing. So if you are a school in the States, I can see your kids are like, come on, Mom. Let's go. So Angela, thank you so much for being with us today. I will be in touch with you, and we will share Angela's TED Talk link. We'll share her Facebook link. She'll send that to me, and we'll put that all in the post with this video. So thank you. And all our viewers, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.